Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the CEC 15, March 28th, 2023 calendar meeting. I am Camille Casaretti, the president of CEC 15, and we are coming to you live from PS 676 in Red Hook. I will pass the floor over to our interpretation team who will introduce themselves. We have interpreters tonight for Spanish language, Chinese, and Bangla, I believe. So let's begin with the Spanish interpretation, please. Please introduce yourself.
Good evening, everyone. The following message will be in Spanish offering interpretation services. Buenas noches a todos. Gracias por estar acá. Si desea servicios de interpretación en español, por favor marque desde su teléfono al 347-966-4114 e ingrese el código de conferencia 452-931-827, símbolo numeral. Nuevamente, si desea interpretación en español, por favor marque desde su teléfono al 347-966-4114 e ingrese el número de conferencia 452-931-827, símbolo numeral. Si desea escuchar el audio en español, pero desea permanecer en esta sala virtual para ver la reunión desde su computadora, por favor recuerde silenciar el micrófono de todos sus dispositivos. Esto es muy importante para garantizar la calidad de sonido durante la interpretación. Nuevamente, la línea de español es 341-966-4114 y el número de conferencia es 452-931-827, símbolo numeral. Gracias. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And could we have the Chinese interpreter please introduce yourself?
Thank you. Hi, everyone. The following message will be in Mandarin. 大家晚上好，中文翻译频道请拨打347-966-4114，会议 ID 145-620-850井号键。再说一遍，中文翻译请拨打347-966-4114，会议 ID 145-620-850井号键。谢谢 ，Thank you.
Thank you. And the Bangla interpreter, please introduce yourself.
Bangla instructions are শুভ সন্ধ্যা সবাইকে। আজকের এই জুম মিটিংটি যদি আপনারা বাংলায় শুনতে চান তাহলে আপনারা আপনার মুঠোফোন থেকে চাপুন 347-966-4114 এবং সেই সাথে আইডি চাহিবা মাত্রই প্রবেশ করুন 622-777-600 এবং শেষে পাউন্ড চাপবেন। আমি আবারও বলছি, আপনারা যদি বাংলায় এই জুম মিটিংটি শুনতে চান তাহলে আপনারা অবশ্যই আপনার মুঠোফোনে প্রবেশ করুন 347-966-4114 এবং আইডি চাহিবা মাত্রই ওখানে প্রবেশ করান 622-777-600 এবং সবশেষে পাউন্ড চাপবেন। আজকে আমি আছি নুশান এবং আমার সাথে আছে মিস্টার আওয়াল। আপনাদের যদি কোনো ধরনের প্রশ্ন থেকে থাকে অবশ্যই আপনারা আপনার মুঠোফোনে জিজ্ঞাসা করতে পারেন অথবা জুমের যে চ্যাট বক্সটি আছে সেখানেও প্রশ্নটি করতে পারেন। আমরা অবশ্যই আপনাদেরকে আপনার অ্যান্সারটা দিব এখানে, এবং সেই সাথে যখন আপনারা প্রশ্ন করবেন আপনার অবশ্যই জুম মিটিংটি মিউট করে রাখবেন যাতে করে দুই জায়গা থেকে সাউন্ড না আসে। ধন্যবাদ সবাইকে। Thank you so much. Bangla instructions has been given.
Thank you so much. And so I am going to call this meeting to order at 6:45. Very sorry for this late start. We have 26 people on the Zoom and about 12 in the room. And so I'm going to hand the floor over to our secretary, Antonia Ferraro, to call the roll.
Good evening, everybody. Okay. Camille Casaretti, are you present?
I am present.
Antonia Ferraro, yes, I'm here. Tia Shellstead has written in that she is requesting an excused absence, as is Vincent Liu. Nana Poku Ajakum. Alfred D. Ingenis.
Not here.
Not. Okay, maybe he'll come later. Joseph Alexander.
Present.
Yvonne Banda. Nancy Randall. Vanessa Uoka Gonzalez has written in requesting an excused absence, as has Nakia Muhasa Brown.
And we got a message from Alfred. I'm stuck in a meeting. It's coming to an end. I'll try to get there as soon as possible.
Okay, so he may be late. All right. I'll update that later. So we do have quorum. We could move on to the business meeting minutes. We have minutes for the March 14th business meeting. Has everybody had a chance to look over those minutes? I'll give you a couple of seconds now. Does anybody have any things that they would like to, any notes on the minutes? Anything they'd like to change? Can I get a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Okay.
The minute.
Are there any objections? Can we adopt these minutes? The minutes are adopted without objection. We also, we have on the agenda to vote on the minutes from last year, from June 21st, 2022. I would prefer to wait to vote on these because there are some links for the old presentations that I would really like to add to those minutes, but I don't have access to them. And so I would like to hold off on voting on those minutes.
Okay, fine.
And Camille, maybe you have those presentations?
Possibly.
Possibly. Okay. All right. So we will now move on to Nancy Randall for the introduction.
Community Education Council tonight. Thank you for coming to our District 15 Community Education Council tonight. We appreciate your time and we are glad you could join us. For those of you who are new to CEC meetings, there are 32 CECs throughout the city, plus 4 citywide councils. Each CEC represents a community school district and each is made up of 11 volunteer members. 9 are elected by parents in the district. The remaining 2 are appointed by the Brooklyn Borough President, and we intend to have 1 high school student member. CEC 15 is a state mandated public body responsible for ensuring that public school parents and the public have input in educational decisions that are made at the school district level. Our council reviews education policies and advocates for high quality education that benefit all of our District 15 public elementary and middle school students. CEC 15 serves 35 elementary and middle schools and 1 high school under the oversight of our superintendent. CEC members serve in an advisory role on education matters to the district superintendent, the chancellor of the Department of Education, and to state and city elected officials. We approve district zoning, school zoning lines submitted by the Department of Education. We evaluate our district superintendent. We review the district's educational programs, and we support school leadership teams. We also submit recommendations for the School Construction Authority's annual capital plan. And as of recent amendments to the law, CEC is advised in the selection of parent coordinators. We actively seek input and feedback from the public and encourage you to visit our website, cecd15.org. Take a look at our Facebook page, connect with us on Twitter, and write to us about any issues you may want to address or learn about. Each school has a CEC liaison. All of our names and contact information are available on our website. Thank you. And please remember to sign the attendance sheet in the chat or here if you are here in person.
All right, let's pass the mic down to the parliamentarian.
All right, good evening. Tonight's meeting is taking place in person, but will include a public comment period. We will take both remote and in-person comments to gather additional feedback from our families and school community members. You may leave your camera on, or for your own privacy, if you prefer, you may use audio only during the comment period and throughout the meeting. So, rules of engagement. When you comment, please respect the privacy of others. Please don't include names of children or staff. Guests who make inappropriate comments will be removed during the meeting. During the public comment period, those attending virtually may raise their hand to comment or indicate in the chat that they would like to speak. Those called upon will be unmuted. If you are attending in person, you must sign the guest attendance sheet. Where's that? We have it on.
Yep.
Okay. The guest attendance sheet over there. Speakers, you'll be given 1 minute for each comment. We will hear as many speakers as the time allows. It is possible that not every comment, it is likely that not every comment or question will be given time. So the best way to get your question answered is always to write the CEC at the email that someone will please put in the chat for me. CEC members will also be given a comment period. Will also be given a comment period. Members will be called upon and are each permitted 1 2-minute comment or question. If members do not have a comment, they may cede their time to the chair. Thank you.
Okay.
Hey, everyone. Sorry about these transitions. We're still trying to figure out this hybrid meeting. So exciting news about the CCEC elections. Last night, our District 15 President's Council hosted the Candidates Forum, and they did a fantastic job at moderating. The candidate statements are all posted on the DOE website, as will be the video of the forum. Voting will take place after all of the candidate forums have been completed. The voting period runs between April 1st and May 9th. You must have a New York City Schools account to vote. We have been referring to that as NYCSA. Please reach out to your parent coordinator as soon as possible. If you don't have a NYCSA account, it takes a little while to set it up, so you do not want to wait till the last minute. We will share the election information and the candidate statements in the chat and the link to NYCSA. So look for that. Middle school admissions offers are going to be released after school hours on Tuesday, April 25th. All 8th grade families will be receiving an email for the offer that is being given to you. You can access this offer either through the myschools.nyc account, through your child's guidance counselor at their school, or through a family welcome center. In updates about the DOE budget, the panel for education policy voted on the budget for the next school year. They voted on that Wednesday night, and they approved the preliminary budget. This happened prior to their vote on the fair student funding weights for next year, the next school year. Our controller, Brad Lander, who has a seat on the PEP now, thanks to CEC advocacy, has called this a premature and meaningless exercise. The questions that are remaining open are vast. For one, we need the final approval of the state budget before a vote should even be happening. We don't know what money we're looking at or talking about. We want to know how will the DOE allocate the additional $90 million required by the new fair student funding weights? And will the sum be additional to our schools, or will it supplant some existing program? How will school enrollment be projected, and will it relate to the budget directly? The DOE has already revealed at the City Council hearing that there will be additional unspecified cuts to school budgets next fall as a result of an $800 million in cuts to the DOE overall. The Alliance for Quality Education, AQE, shared that New York State is on the verge of fully funding 100% of foundation aid for the first time since its creation. The promised 3-year phase-in will be delivered in the enacted budget when it is finalized in just over a week. If we want foundation aid to have its intended impact, we have to do more work. Governor Hochul is pushing for a massive expansion of charter schools in New York City, which would siphon off the school aid increase. New York City public and charter schools are both struggling with enrollment declines due to fewer school-age children living in New York City. Charter schools have been asking the Board of Regents to modify their charters due to the inability to meet enrollment targets. And we are going to drop a link in the chat to tell Albany do not raise the charter cap. So please sign on to that. I'm going to hand the floor over to Antonia, who is going to report on the most recent charter school hearing that we had in District 15. Antonia.
Okay. Thank you. Yes, we will put in the link in the chat, all of those links afterwards so that you guys can take a look at them. I did attend a hearing last week for Brooklyn Prospect Charter, and I testified in opposition to their revision for Brooklyn Prospect Sunset Yards Elementary and Middle Schools. The revision, in my view, is an example that demonstrates the lack of need for more charters in New York City. The charter stated that due to enrollment challenges, Brooklyn Prospect Charter has decided to reduce its opening enrollment at Sunset Yards and change the grades served from their initial plan was to serve 55 kindergartners, and now they'll be serving 25 fifth graders in their middle school. The charter stated that they were concerned that their elementary school would simply be poaching their own students from their existing Brooklyn Prospect Charter. It's just such an admission of lack of district need. They held on to this dormant charter for the past 3 years before opening it. By the way, we call dormant charters zombie charters. And Brooklyn Prospect's revision also highlights the need to put firm deadlines on the use of a charter. They should really have to reapply for the charter based on current district need and not be able to reshuffle and reduce. So that is the sum of what I testified last week. And I will turn it over to Principal Christina Gonzalez, who is going to update us on the traffic issues that PS 94 is experiencing.
Hi, everybody. My name is Cristina Gonzalez, and I am the principal of PS 94, an elementary school located on 6th Avenue between 50 and 51st Street. Since from the past 2 years, we've been encountering a lot of pedestrian risky situations, but the problem now is that the way that the drivers are driving at all times during the day has impacted the safety of not only my staff, but my students. Just in the past year, we have had 3 major car accidents in the perimeter of the school. On November 8th, which was a day that was, I'm going to speak slower for the transcript. On November 8th, it was an asynchronous day, and there was a car that was so fast that it actually turned around and landed on the 2 brownstones right in front of the school. It happened at around 7:30 in the morning. Had it been a full instructional day, we would have had many casualties. In addition to that, on Wednesday before the Thanksgiving break, one of my teachers was crossing the street and she was hit, and she's now scheduled to have a double hip replacement. When we came back from the Christmas break during dismissal, one of my students was hit and he broke his foot, and we had to call an ambulance. And just last Thursday, a teacher was arriving to school for our morning programs, and she was also hit while parking the car, and we had to call an ambulance, and she had to take some time off. And so the issue is this: we have enough documentation to prove that it is unsafe to walk around Sunset Park. We have enough documentation to prove that my staff and my families get harassed by drivers during arrival and dismissal. We have appealed to the police through our precinct and through our deputy director and of safety. And all we get is that we have a shortage of staff and we can't provide you a crossing guard. So I am here, and Antonia connected us with some people that actually apply for closing the streets. But we also know that that's a very difficult thing to accomplish, because we have to really coordinate with the neighbors, and it will be a street closing from 7 to 4, which is an inconvenience to Sunset Park. We just don't know what else to do. We are concerned. My staff and the families are not safe. My students are being physically harmed, and my staff is also physically harmed. But I want to say that this issue about safety is not only when my kids are walking in and out of the building. I also see it during Saturday Academy, and it is a problem that must be addressed. So we are appealing. Javier Salamanca from Voice Ciudadanas and my PTA president, Joey, applied for a speed bump. And we have met with politicians to help us get traffic lights. And so far, all we get is we will assess the problem and get back to you. Even though I have 1,000 students and 200 staff members coming to work every day. So I just need more advocacy. I need CEC 15 to help me get this done. Thank you.
Principal Gonzalez. Thank you for sharing all of this information. And we were given multi-pages of actions, the logs for all of the attempts that they've made as a school. and this is going back to January of 2022, just pages of information. And I think at the very minimum, we could certainly write a resolution for you. And I know that I also have been involved in trying to get other things, lights, flashing lights over there too. It's just crazy. And I'm so sorry because this is so important and I have no idea what is going on or where this holdup is happening. We definitely have to elevate it to a much bigger way. Did you have them?
You drive up on 15 and you see quite slow, but actually have speed bumps and traffic cameras there. You know, for me, it's about equity. So what is it that my community is not being addressed? As such.
Is that 72nd precinct?
Yes.
You know, my boundary school at PS 130, and just this week there was a man in this school playground area, like in the gate area, before the doors open, sleeping on the stoop where the kids enter, and the teachers woke him up, parents woke him up and tried to help him up, and he refused to leave. He was belligerent and had some issues. They called 911. They called the 7-2 in directly. And they said, well, we're in the middle of a shift change. We can't deal with that right now. It took them 3 hours to get there. This is at an elementary school, like pre-K kids, like 3 and 4-year-olds. And it's like, a crossing guard isn't going to be able to stop somebody going 90. Like that's out of their pay grade. I mean, it has to be enforcement. And I mean, if Superintendent Alvarez maybe could get involved and work with our council member, Hanif, to see if some pressure on NYPD can be put, because this is bigger than safety crossing guards. Like it's a lack of enforcement of. It's outrageous.
You want to say something?
And there are no speed bumps on PTS or PRS at all.
And one of those blocks is a bus. Right. Or
it's a bus line, so there cannot be a speed bump there.
Right.
We're requesting it be placed on the 51st.
On the 51st, because in the neighborhood. Right, yeah.
And had we talked about asking for a street closure during those hours? What happened with that?
Mr. Brown actually connected me with the nonprofit that actually deals about the application and in the process of filling it out. But when I met with Provide, Aguilar from Alexander office, he said that they're trying to do the same thing in 169 and they're getting a lot of pushback from the neighbors. So we're going to continue to pursue them, but I anticipate it could be faster to get police presence than the approval of the street closure.
Okay, so then we have work to do on our resolution and hopefully something will come of it then, but maybe a petition as well. We have a petition.
We send it to the police.
So I think that they need to be sent to other places. So we can talk about that too.
I think we can just go to a community. Show up at a precinct community meeting and just, complain.
I was
Sorry, go ahead.
I just wanted to add in the general sense of things in the particular area of Sunset Park. March 18, we had a walk with Transportation Alternative, and we were together with Isabeles, the Office of Assembly Member Mitanes, Hanif, and Bernardes, and we walked from around 2 couple blocks from here, all the way 3rd Avenue and up to 60th. We passed Costco and all that, and we were just looking because here at the CEC 15, we like to see things on the ground. And that Saturday, as I was one of the persons said, so part of the CEC went to see because we had a lot of our students. I have one of my schools, 516 is right there on 4th Avenue. And so we were meeting with politicians, and this was about the BQE, but it's also all this area from 3rd Avenue all the way to your avenue. And it's just the traffic is just incredible, the noise, the pollution. So I just wanted to see things on the field, and it's a very nice walk to see the neighborhood on, and that's a Saturday, so it was very noisy. It was a lot of trucks. I can imagine how is that every day having 1,000 students and 200 people in your staff walking around that.
Yeah, and to her point, because I'm right on 13th Street, they just brought in a speed camera, and they have speed bumps on both the 13th and the 14th Street. So that is something that I've seen around the school. So you're right. It should be equity where, if other neighborhoods are having it, why not?
We have a lot of notes, and we are going to get to work on that right away. I really appreciate your time in coming here and the documents as the evidence, and we appreciate you and hope everyone stays safe there, and hoping to get some answers in the very near future. So thank you. Thank you. I am going to ask Miss Mia Perez to come, and from City Council person Shahana Hanif's office. She's going to talk about participatory budget and the Gowanus neighborhood rezoning and possibly a few other things. Why don't you sit? It's too hard to keep moving.
Hi, everyone. Really great to be here. My name is Mia Perez, and I'm the Education and Land Use Director at Councilmember Hanif's office. Just following the previous agenda item, just wanted to offer my support and also say it's something that we've seen at many schools in our district. I think one thing that could also be helpful, I know folks mentioned red light cameras and speed cameras. This type, safety around schools requires a multi-pronged approach, and those specific potential solutions are approved at the state level. So I would also recommend state electeds getting engaged. And at a school in our district, we wrote a letter to state and city DOT making these requests for a specific school. So I think this type of approach might be helpful in this context. And I'm happy to share my info and connect with you on any other potential next steps. I wanted to share a bit about an upcoming public engagement meeting that is taking place tomorrow, March 29th, from 6 to 8:30, both at PS 32 and on Zoom. It is the Gowanus Rezoning Oversight Task Force public meeting, and this has been an effort that our office and Councilmember Ressler's office has been working on over the past few months in response to the Gowanus rezoning that was passed back in 2021, which is an 82 block rezoning, which includes several investments in the Gowanus community, including 3,000 affordable units, some capital improvements in the Wyckoff and Gowanus NYCHA houses, and park improvements as well, among many others. And so this meeting is going to be focused on bringing all of the city agencies that made commitments to the table to share updates on the investments that they've made. And this is going to be a quarterly meeting that we host to ensure that there's accountability and follow through on those many commitments. And so we'll share the link in the chat, and I have flyers here for those who may be interested. And there will also be Spanish interpretation at this event. And then finally, just wanted to share that it is participatory budgeting vote week through April 2nd. And this is an exciting process by which the community gets to vote on how the city council spends $1.5 million. This year, participatory budgeting in Council District 39 is climate justice focused. So all projects are going to be focused on ensuring our communities are healthier, greener, and more resilient. And all people ages 11 and up can vote, and both students and residents of District 39. So I have flyers here, and we'll also be sure to share the link in the chat so that folks can access that. Thank you so much for your time, and looking forward to following up.
Thank you so much, Mia. Thank you so much. We have Frances Brown from Senator Chu's office as well for some quick updates.
Hi, I'm very happy to be here today. Thank you for having me. So I am from Senator Ewan Chu's office, New York State Senator Ewan Chu. And I just wanted to let you all know that our office is hosting a tax prep event for seniors and low income families. And we still have every week, and we still have spots open for April 9th in particular. You can call our office and set up for an appointment. Our team can assist in Mandarin, Cantonese, Russian, Urdu, Hebrew, or Arabic. And the office is continues to host mobile hours to serve our constituents on Wednesdays from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at CPC Brooklyn, which is 4101 8th Avenue. On Thursdays, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at the New Utrecht Library, or Fridays, 1 p.m. To 5 p.m. at McKinley Park Library. Constituents can always contact the Senator's team by emailing ewanchu@nysenate.gov or calling us at 718-333-0311.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So we are going to move further ahead on our agenda, and I will hand the floor over to Superintendent Rafael Alvarez, who is going to give us the district report. Welcome, Superintendent Alvarez.
I should put it on here.
Shanice, are you going to be able to share the spreadsheet?
Or the PowerPoint, yeah.
Oh, PowerPoint, sorry, presentation. I have spreadsheets on the brain.
While Shanice puts the PowerPoint on, if we could just take a moment of silence to honor the memory of those who lost their lives in yet again another mass shooting in schools. While it wasn't in New York, we are in partnership with all of our educational community across the country and around the world. So if we could just take a moment of silence while we get that PowerPoint, but also taking a moment. I have the PowerPoint in front of me, so I'm going to start. Well, oh, there, perfect. Thanks, Shanice. So if we could just turn to the next, I think 2 slides, 3. Next slide. Can you move to the next slide? Sorry. Shanice, next slide. All right, yeah. I'll start speaking to this. Really, I'm going to the celebration part. First and foremost, as we end the month of March, we're closer to that of Women's History Month. And so I just want to recognize all the women, not only in the audience, but on screen, but then nationally and globally, specifically for me, my grandmother, my mom, who were pillars for me and where I am today. I also want to recognize celebration of Ramadan, as we have recently, as well as formally for Happy St. Patrick's Day as well. So wanted just to shout that out, and just a few things coming up. Some of the things that are happening, and we're here at 676, the Harbor School, which is an elementary school that's phasing into a middle school. Students were on PIX 11 discussing a community bridge that students have worked on, but they also had News 12 discussing the community bridge and upcoming wind turbine project that they've been working on as a school. Several students from this school's dance team were able to perform at American Dream on Sunday, February 26th, at the American Dream Mall in New Jersey. While they were there on March 4th, they were asked to come back and host the Kids' Choice Awards party for Nickelodeon. So some great things happening at 676, and we're excited to share some of the happenings of the school that we're actually sitting in today. Next slide. In addition to that, PS 107 and 295 had a press release announcement about being landmark structured literacy school pilots. Essentially, District 15 is part of the New York City DOE's Literacy Collaborative, where Mayor Adams, Chancellor Banks, and Assemblymember Robert Carroll have ensured that they secured $100,000 in state funding for evidence-based literacy instruction to happen at these particular schools, while they're providing special instruction for students who are at risk for or are diagnosed with dyslexia. So we want to thank our principal, Joanna Cohen, and Valerie Vanderpew for leading this work. Next slide. Save for college at PS 15, slowing down. Okay, students at PS 15 are visiting college campuses at Columbia University, Kingsborough, and Brooklyn College for College and Career Week. And during that time, they invited kindergartner and first graders to visit the campuses with the fifth grade students as buddies to kind of teach them the lessons around their college savings plan, which we all know that the city has the savings plan, New York City savings plan, where at this point, kindergartners and first graders have money that's being saved for them for when they get to college. And so we thought it was a great idea that PS 15 took their fifth graders to get a college exposure, but also took those kindergartners and first graders as buddies, just to show them what it's going to be. And if we keep insisting with these conversations inadvertently, directly and indirectly, it will actually make kids think about college. So we thought that was great. Next slide. PS 131 was featured at the MoMA Museum. Their exhibit was titled, Who Am I? So if you look at the screens, this is all student artwork that was displayed at the MoMA, and it's currently still being displayed at the MoMA for a schools programs exhibition, where the students are being highlighted for their artwork at a museum that is recognized worldwide. So we were excited about PS 131's excitement with that work. It was amazing to see. Next slide. The inaugural school newspaper launched at PS 38. PS 38 came up with a newspaper that was several pages long. They shared with us on the important things that are happening in their school community, and thinking about the staff that's been dedicated to support this, such as Mrs. Duclayan, who's really been talking about things that are happening not only in the school, but surrounding the school community that's impacting the community, and the students are becoming writers. Idea. This is looking towards having a district newspaper because several schools have their own school newspaper, and figuring out how do we share that news across the district from across different school communities and different neighborhoods. That's coming next year. Next slide. St. Patrick's Day celebration at PS 118. One of our uncles came with his bagpipes and started some of that work to share with the students with music and dance around St. Patrick's Day. So we were excited about that as well. Next slide. Spotlight on middle school 136 and the Literacy Collaborative. They were highlighted in the coaching newsletter for the Literacy Collaborative, where 136 was really showing their literacy classrooms and sharing their stories around the learning series and the work that they were doing at their school. So just showing that we're highlighting all parts of our district, but also some amazing things that are happening. Oftentimes, we see a lot of news articles about the negative things that are happening in our system. So we want to bring light to the positive things that are happening. And with that, next slide. The Literacy Academy Collaborative also visited PS 169. Now, this is dear to my heart because it's 161 is a school in the South Bronx that was going to get their first Literacy Academy Collaborative that I was able to start before I left District 7. And they came to visit one of our schools, PS 169, to see how they're using the PAF, which is Preventing Academic Failure, and Orrin Gillingham work, specifically in their Spanish dual language classes around read alouds, as well as word work, to develop the students' understanding in reading and writing in both English, but also in Spanish. And so this is some great work that we were seeing there. So I wanted to highlight that. Next slide. Yeah, no, I know. I just have to, I have my slides, so I'm just gonna keep speaking. At PS 29, third grade running club and Move It mornings, seeing kids exercising and using the spaces that they have or the spaces they don't have in more creative ways, running in the neighborhood and growing as healthy students. And then the next slide, PS 29 also has some really other amazing things that have been happening, like Project Cicero. They also have their newspaper. They actually had a parent who actually had them printed in old newsprint. So that was amazing to see if you get a chance to get that. And then they have Super Science Saturdays. So as opposed to just being instructional test prep or a Saturday Academy of Test Prep, she has the kids working on science projects to build their literacy skills, but using a science hands-on lens. Hint, hint, a lot of project-based learning assignments, which we've been moving towards across the district, and we're really proud of that work. And then next slide. 896 celebrates learning. This was done today. We saw some PBL, sensory learning, community service, small group strategic reading, and differentiated instruction and learning centers across the school community. So they were looking at more creative ways of engaging students in learning how to read. Next slide. This work, PS 124 was doing a lot of celebration around engaging, learning, and helping. So they were also working on community service and how to support within the community. You see that in the second picture in the middle. They had a band from that came to share some of the work and celebrate the work that they were doing in terms of community service and in service of their community. Next slide. District 15 schools have been cultivating genius with obviously Goldie Muhammad and growing our PBLs with Jen Yonkers. So not only are we focusing on project-based learning and school-wide enrichment, but we're trying to infuse the idea of using culturally responsive education within those project-based learning projects. So teachers and school leaders have been taking part on ongoing professional development for the past couple of months, and we're just excited to see what that celebration is going to be like. Next slide. This is big news. So Chancellor Banks and the Brooklyn Nets introduced the Nets Academy clinics that I've been working on since I arrived in July. We finally solidified this. So what this is that originally it was only supposed to be for District 15 elementary and middle schools. I was able to get the Brooklyn Nets to extend it to the entire borough of Brooklyn so that every elementary and middle school for the remainder of this year and into all of next year will get these basketball clinics, which are 4 45-minute clinics at each school. Students will receive shirts, the schools will receive basketballs, and we're working on making sure that they have tickets to give as incentives to see the Brooklyn Nets play in Brooklyn. And the entire borough's involved. In addition to that, I was able to secure $150,000 from the Brooklyn Nets, but unselfishly, we took $50,000 for District 15 to provide for an after-school program at one of our schools, but I shared with District 13 because the Brooklyn Nets live in District 13's district, and then I share with District 18 because District 18 had the largest loss of students enrollment across this particular borough. And so it's my sister from another mother, Celeste Terry, who's the superintendent of District 18. So I wanted to share across the district so she's able to provide an after-school program to her district. So we're excited about that. Next slide. District-wide curriculum, there's been a lot of conversation about this. Where are we as a city? I think the city has currently delayed the implementation of the 3 curricula that was decided on. I can tell you that for 15, rather than the superintendent decide, we're going to be using the principals and AP advisory first to do inquiry around what the programs look like so that they can do a deeper dive of what's the best impact that this curricula is going to have on our district. Then they're going to share that with their colleagues at conferences. We're going to have sharing as well with our CEC members, as well as our President's Council, to get feedback from them in terms of the curricula that's going to be provided. And then if we have to make a decision, we're going to be making it with consensus across all stakeholders, including our DLT, to finalize what that's going to look like for D15. I'm hopeful that this is going to continue to get delayed so that schools can continue to use some of the great and wonderful things that they're using. But if we have to go this route, I want to make sure that this route has all input of the community, as opposed to just the superintendent making its sole decision for 39 schools plus. I say plus because by the time this gets implemented in 15, we'll probably have about 3 or 4 more schools. So I just wanted to give you where my thought process is around this work. Next slide. School safety, it's a big hot topic again. So I just want to share some of the things that we're doing as a system. You may not always agree with everything, but I could tell you that New York City has a lot more systems than most systems across the country. I can attest to that, having worked in Norfolk, Virginia as well. The principals are now having meetings with the NYPD of their local respective precincts weekly to address concerns across the neighborhood and also get updates on issues that are happening in the neighborhood. We have building response teams that are trained to deal with crises in our schools, and they're activated on a constant basis. We have a borough safety director, currently is Maurice Lindsay. He provides feedback to schools around what their needs are to do. And when that doesn't work, I use Mark Rempersant, which is the city's director for emergency responses. Radios and communications. Those of you who don't know, the schools have these black walkie-talkies. And the reason why we've had schools remove those Motorola walkie-talkies is because of the access. The black walkie-talkies that they have are connected to NYPD radios. So there's an orange button on those. When that button is pushed, the entire system across the entire city will hear what's going on and can immediately address any particular issue in a minute, literally, because it will go to every radio of everybody in the neighborhood and in the city. So I want you to be aware that that's also that. Schools have panic buttons. So principals' offices have panic buttons that allows them to address a need immediately. And that also goes over the radio. Everything can be heard every moment. Many schools have cameras across the schools. And there's several schools in our district that are in the process of getting cameras, such as MS51. And there's a few others that I didn't mention, and upgrades in some of the cameras as well. I know that 94 had some camera issues, and we had those repaired as well. We have what's called NCOs and YCOs who support schools directly. NCOs are neighborhood community officers. YCOs are youth community officers. Every principal has access to the phone number of these youth officers. So if there's ever an emergency, they can reach out directly to that person when 911 doesn't answer the call. So that's a little bit to answer that question. Principal Parsons should have access to her youth officers with their cell phone numbers. She also has the number directly to the CO for the local precinct. So in the future, she might want to use that as an access to be able to communicate when she's not getting a response in a timely fashion, which is what we directed her. And that's when she was able to get the answer for that when she reached out to us about this situation. General response protocols, there are safety and evacuation drills that are mandated by the state and the city. We had the PEP. Recently, the panel on educational policy had voted to install front door locks, cameras, and buzzer systems. That's supposed to go into effect for this particular school year coming up, and I believe that they're starting with elementary schools first. Door alarms are in schools already, the ones with the beeping sound, so that we know when a door is open or closed. Those are supposed to be checked regularly by safety agents or other staff members within the school to ensure that the batteries are working, but also to ensure that they're actually locked. School safety plans for evacuations when there's a need to go to a primary, secondary, and tertiary school location. There are several protocols that are being put in place. There's training and professional development with the Office of School Safety and Youth Development. Principals have to go, I believe it's every other year, to get trained and be certified by FDNY, where they go to 2 or 3 full-day trainings. Oftentimes the city offers what's called active shooter training. This usually happens in the summer, where schools leaders can sign up to be able to participate in what it would look like during an active shooter training. So these are some of the things that New York City is doing, which is far beyond what a lot of cities do across the country. While we are seeing violence and there has been violence across our city, what we know is that our schools are safer and they continue to be safer. We may not agree with how safe they are, but we can say that we continue to take more measures to keep it even safer. So I just wanted to share that. Next slide. Upcoming events and deadlines, and I'm going to go through this quickly. The Brooklyn Army Terminal, we had to change from Industry City because they had to take the tents down. I wasn't comfortable with having an outdoor event in the event that it rains or is very windy with kids with projects. So we were able to secure the Brooklyn Army Terminal. I want to thank Sunset Park Lions Club for actually helping us secure this, where we didn't even have to pay for it. So we're excited and thank the Brooklyn Army Terminal's partnership. We're going to be able to set up the day before, so everything's going to be great. It's from 5 to 7, May 24th, and it's a Wednesday. It's where we're going to be showcasing our PBLs, our project-based learning, as well as the SEM projects. If you have questions or want to volunteer, NSING 10. Mr. Singh is coordinating this for our district. He meets every other week with a team of members who are helping him put this together. We're excited about this. This is our first one. So let's see, let's pull it out with a bang so that we can even have it even further next year. Next slide. Just to give you a heads up, I shared this with DLT a little bit yesterday. At the end of the year, we're going to have a community extravaganza and forum on Saturday, June 3rd, 9 to 3. We're going to have parent and family workshops in multiple languages. We're going to have student performances across the district. And we're also going to have our lunch, and we're going to have a carnival/community info share session fair. So there's going to be a lot of things to do. I want to thank MS 136 and 821 for us using their site and their schoolyard. Since they have such a large one, we'll be able to expand the spaces and how we use that. We're looking for all of our electeds. There's going to be a lot of people there. And this is all going to be about parents. And so we're going to be celebrating our parents and many others. And just to come, that's not on the slides, is we're looking at creating a day where we're celebrating and honoring some of our other support staff in our schools, such as our school safety officers, our kitchen staff, our custodial staff. And so stand by for that. We'll give you the date for when that's coming, where we're going to be honoring those that support us in our system. Next slide. If you didn't know, now you know. Principal Perlberg of MS 839 runs a middle school soccer invitational league with multiple schools across our district 15. It doesn't necessarily mean community school district 15. This includes some of the high schools across our district and even neighboring districts. There are about 10 schools who compete. If you want, the league schedule is there. When you get a chance, go check them out. They're playing soccer. They're competing against each other. And we're excited that we're creating these intramural sports in middle school across our district. Next slide. These are some dates to keep in mind. Summer Rising info, April 18th. The last day to complete your survey is on it's been extended to March 31st, extended from March 31st to April 20th. The spring break is April 6th to the 14th. Parent Leader Election Workshop, April 20th. The 21st is school close, Eid. April 25th, middle school offers will be released after school hours. And to be determined, Gender 101 with the Ackerman Institute. We'll get into more details with that. Next slide. These are your state exams. I'm not going to read this for you. You will have copies of this. This is for what the state exams look like for the remainder of this particular school year. Next slide. Family engagement, CEC elections, candidate forum was obviously, yesterday. April 21st to the 9th is parents' ability to vote via their NISCA accounts. PAPTA SLT elections, April 1st, to notify principals of election date, and SLT and PA elections completed by June 30th. Title I is April 3rd for PACs to adhere to purchasing deadlines, and Title I PAC election completed on June 30th. Next slide. We talked about this already. CEC president shared this already. Just another reminder, April 25th, Tuesday, after school hours, middle school offers will be released. My Schools.NYC is there. That's a matter of when you can place yourself on the wait list for middle schools. So as soon as you get that information, click, 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 because that will give you the fastest ability to hold a spot for a waitlist seat. Next slide. Summarizing, this year, DOE-led program is going to be from 8 to 12. The extended enrichment will be until 6 p.m. I'm not going to go into details, but if you have questions about summer school, P. Stein 3, who's our district rep, can be able to answer any questions that you have. But essentially, July 5th to August 11th, August 18th will be CBO-led for the remainder of that week. And for 6 to 12, July 5th to the 11th. 12-month IEP students for District 75 are July 6th to August 15th. ESY, which you guys know as extended school years, July 5th to August 14th. And the Nest and Horizon program, ASD program, goes from July 5th to August 1st. Enrollment dates, April 17th until May 1st. And notifications of where you're gonna be placed will be May 2nd to May 9th. Next slide. That's it. Questions, comments, concerns? You want me to continue first to let them? Yeah, it's up to you. Yeah, all right. So right now we're going to bring in Office of District Planning, who's going to continue this, and then I'll be back for any questions to respond to the CEC as well as to the community and the public at large. You can move to the next slide.
Yeah. Okay. I have. Oops, both of them? Yeah. Okay. Thanks. Hi, everyone. Thank you for having us. We are from the New York City Department of Education's Office of District Planning. We can go to the next slide. And we can go one more slide over. We'll introduce ourselves. My name is Tori Fenton. I'm the Director of Planning for Brooklyn North and Staten Island. And I'm joined by...
Hi, everyone. My name is Perry Stein, and I also work with Tori at the Office of District Planning.
And thank you again for having us. We are excited to join your meeting tonight because we are here to share about some planned new capacities coming to the district in September of 2024. So tonight we're going to share an overview of 2 new school buildings. We'll spend a very brief amount of time talking about enrollment trends at nearby schools, and then we'll talk about our next steps for planning. I want to say from the top, we're here, I think, to just share a brief overview, and we are really looking forward and thankful to have time on the April agenda where we will have a fuller conversation. But Perry, go ahead and walk us through the buildings.
Awesome. Thanks, Tori. So first off, as Tori mentioned, we just want to introduce the 2 buildings that are going to be opening in District 15 for the 2024 and 2025 school year. So we have building K347, which we're going to be referring to as St. Francis Xavier, which is located in Park Slope. It is between 6th and 7th Avenue on President Street. And you can see it on the map there. And we also have at the northern part of the district in the Borum Hill area, 80 Flatbush, which is building K654, which is on Atlantic and 4th Avenue, right by Atlantic Terminal. So this is sort of where they're situated in the context of District 15 at large. But if we go on to the next slide, we could see, a closer look at these 2 buildings. So on the left, we have K654, which again, we're going to be referring to in this presentation as 80 Flatbush, which is located within the PS38 zone. And then we have on the right, K347, or St. Francis Xavier, which is located in the PS321 zone. So next slide, please. So St. Francis Xavier. So just to give a bit more information on this building, as I mentioned, it's located on President Street and expected to open in the 2024 to 2025 school year. The building has the capacity for approximately 451 seats. It's designed to serve elementary school students, and it also includes a large auditorium / multi-purpose room, but it does not have a gym, and it also does not have outdoor play space. So that's some information on St. Francis Xavier. And then on the next slide, some information on the 80 Flatbush building. So this building is located on 362 Skimmerhorn Street. Also opening in the 2024 to 2025 school year. This building also has the capacity to serve approximately 367 students, designed for elementary school space, and also will serve as a replacement site for Khalil Gibran International Academy High School. So we'll serve both elementary school seats and designed high school seats. And also has designed District 75 space as well in the building. For the District 75 space, it's elementary school, right?
I believe it's high school.
Oh, it's high school space? Gotcha. High school District 75 space.
Maybe they start, yeah, the kindergartners are going to the college day, but I do think this site is high school.
Yeah. All right, we could go on to the next slide. And I'll pass it to Tori to discuss some data trends in the areas of both of these schools.
Thanks, Perry. So we shared maps more closely looking at the location of these two buildings, and we wanted to highlight briefly trends of schools that are located within about 1 mile of each of the new buildings. So just to orient you to this table, the first building, PS 261, is within about 1 mile of 80 Flatbush. The two schools following are near both of the new buildings. And then the schools in this table, they're highlighted in yellow, are within about 1 mile of St. Francis Xavier, the building on President Street. So the data we included on this slide to share a bit of the landscape of this part of District 15, we included the 5-year change in enrollment. And that is based on comparing this year's audited register to the 2017-2018 school year. And I think you'll notice there's been a bit of an enrollment decline at all of the schools in the area. We also, as I think many of you know, look at building utilization according to the Blue Book. And here we thought it was interesting to see the spread of a little bit of enrollment decline and that's impact on building utilization. And we wanted to note that the buildings that are in Park Slope, the majority, all except PS 118, are still overutilized. And those buildings are in proximity to St. Francis Xavier. We are planning to share more detailed data when we come back in April, but wanted to start the conversation with a baseline context for schools near the new buildings. We can go to the next slide. So I think, as I mentioned, this is a kickoff to what we look forward to engaging the community as we think about planning for these buildings in collaboration with Superintendent Alvarez, with the CEC and other stakeholders. Based on the enrollment landscape, our initial thinking here is that we're not actively pursuing a rezoning for either of these buildings at this time. But that's something that we're open to hearing kind of initial thoughts or reactions to. And our primary considerations at the moment are for either a non-zoned elementary school, a new school, or potentially resiting existing schools in the area to meet district needs. But tonight, we just want to hear your reactions. We're excited about the new buildings that are planned to open in the district. And then this is really the start of a conversation. And I think we look forward to hearing even more thoughts as you process when we come back in April. That's what we have for tonight.
I think we're gonna have this. So you just do your parliamentarian business.
Okay, I need to see
Maybe
people.
there's the chat.
Shanice, can you take the slides? No, it's fine. I can't see anyone now.
Or maybe you just, open it up.
You want to see the group? Yeah, I was hoping to. You know what to do. Thank you. Perfect. So let's start with the interpretation lines. Can interpreters, would you mind asking if anyone has questions? Please raise your hand.
Okay, so gonna have to.
There's no question from the Bengali line till now.
No question from Mandarin line.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Anyone else on the call not in interpretation? Please raise your hand. This will be for any of the new buildings or Superintendent Alvarez. I see no hands, so we'll move forward to anyone in the auditorium. And I will go to CEC members. Yvonne?
President Albert, last town hall, and also tonight in one of your slides, this was the DBL minister. I was thinking that for next year, maybe we could do something together to, for example, ask the students what are they seeing when they go from home to school. How the street group, as a part of the community services. I live around PS 130, PS 230, and PS 9. And I see a lot of kids walking in the street and Church Avenue and 49 Avenue. And it's changing, it's a lot of traffic in the morning. Yeah. So I would like to see if how that you find the children walking every morning to school, and maybe tell us about it, the experience.
Surveying their experiences in their getting to school and getting home from school, right, and the environment.
And just the environment, and see how anyone in the neighborhood, because then we have all the activities that consequences with the budget process that starts today. So so I would like to see if participating not only in the school, but also the things that happen today.
Yeah, Nicole, we can charge the Youth Congress to look into these things from each individual school to gather information from them. Yeah, that's easy. We can do that.
Because then it involves traffic,
And they can bring some of their thoughts and reporting to the CEC, that the CEC can use it as resources to figure out how to support their students in the community, so that we're giving more student voice to the community. Yeah, we can do that. That's an easy.
One of the things of the potential alternative walk was very interesting that on 60th and 3rd Avenue, you only have 40 seconds to cross 6 lines of street. So I'm wondering, why don't we make it a minute and a half?
Yeah.
Because there's moms, kids, and sometimes grandparents that are slower, and sometimes there's not even a space in the middle between the streets.
Right.
When the action, so I think that is also one of the cases that
You're also in a section of the district which I'd be curious to hear from my colleagues in District 20 as well as 22 and 17, because you're in a very like, you're in a circle, there's like a circle right there that if I cross one street, it's District 22. If I cross another street, it's District 20. If I cross the other way, it's District 17. So I think it would be great to see, I'll talk to those superintendents to see if we could do something for that particular community, because that's a very unique community in that its service is literally 5 districts right by 130.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
where I can see the street from my building.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So we got that, Nicole?
You want to go first?
No, the comments, they can't hear, they couldn't hear that conversation.
Oh,
Couldn't hear
okay.
that
So essentially what Yvonne was saying is that we should survey students next year in order to be able to see where their perspectives are when it comes to coming and going to school from home, and seeing how they're impacted by their environment, such as crossing the street, cleanliness, so on and so forth, any dangers that we can utilize at CEC to have conversations with DOT and other agencies to make improvements for students' ability to get to and from school in a safer environment. And so we're going to survey using our youth Congress, because there's representation from every school, for each youth Congress member to survey their own schools to get that information, and then compile a bunch of information to figure out how we're going to move as an entire district on different issues within different school communities within the district.
I just want to ask, could the public hear that comment now? Can they hear? I don't know if they heard it.
Someone said, I heard.
Can one of the interpreters give us a thumbs up that you heard what I just said? Got it.
Okay.
Okay. Perfect.
Can I go?
Yeah.
Yes. So I was just going to give you my initial reaction on the two schools, and I could just speak about one particular because I'm familiar with it quite a bit. So the initial reason for these two schools is overcrowding in these schools that we mentioned, right? So I've been going through one of that, being part of the PS 118 and 321. I'm going to give you my initial feedback in terms of the issues that we can face. Now, I know where the St. Francis is, and from some of the schools to St. Francis, although it's a proximity, it's quite a distance now. You're talking about 0.01 distance from New York City for a kid to work. It's quite far, right? So that, so the issues are more going to be with the parents, right? And what I saw is that a lot of people are really hesitant to move from especially 321 to 118, because of the fact that they've been in that area for a long time, and they like the convenience aspect of it, right? So there was a bit of a stall where a lot of parents actually were looking for legal action, to be honest, just because they felt like they were being penalized for having to move into a different school, right? And I'm just talking about a school that is one or a couple of blocks in proximity. Now you're talking about St. Francis and you're talking about 124, that is 3 blocks up and 6 blocks up, right? So in terms of not having a rezoning, I see it being an issue right off the back, right? Because the people move to certain neighborhoods because more of the proximity, right? And telling someone to move, like how are we going to decide who moves and who stays? Is it because of the address, right? And anytime that somebody has historically been in the school for a long time, yes, the convenience is one important thing. Also the comfort of knowing what the other school produces all the time is another thing, right? So I think we really need to be intentional about how we're thinking about allocating and who we're going to think about. You're looking at 39, it's 126%. I don't know how much of proximity that is, right? So you're looking at that. I think we have to start getting the parents more involved sooner rather than later to kind of hear some of the feedback and the hesitancy, because that's going to play a real bigger role in terms of the willingness. Because if people are not willing to move from one to the other, then there's going to be a big issue that I foresee. And I'm just talking about the Paxton schools because I'm kind of familiar. I'm not quite familiar with the other one, but that is going to be a bit of an issue in terms of convenience.
Okay, we pass.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that initial reaction and your experience with the schools in Park Slope. I just want to make sure that I'm hearing your feedback. So if I just can recap, I think you started by sharing from the 118 and 321 experience. There were some challenges with families who were zoned out of 321 to 118, and you foresee there being some concerns and challenges if we were to consider another rezoning in the area. And there is a question about proximity, given that we have it within a mile. I think we chose as the crow flies, which for elementary school age children can be very far. And so really thinking about which schools that we may be considering that would be impacted by this planning.
Yeah, I mean, that's accurate, but that was both an easier transition when you're moving from the same zone and it's in proximity. And even that there were challenges. So I'm talking about moving from different zone that is not within proximity.
Yeah. Okay.
Now we need to start thinking about how we're going to tackle that.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, yes, okay.
I have a question.
Nancy, you're gonna have to come
I
closer.
think you're gonna have to come to the mic.
Sure.
You have to come to the
I
mic.
can repeat it if you want. Okay. So this is Nancy's question. I just want to be clear, it's Nancy's question. Go ahead.
Is the school safety agents there's been a number of cuts.
School safety agents had a number of cuts.
And it would be better.
It'd be better for all schools to have 2 safety agents.
Why does the possibility of all our schools, including elementary schools, in District 15, having school safety?
What's the possibility of having all elementary schools in District 15 to have 2 safety agents? And the question was from me. So the short answer to that is an NYPD question, because while the DOE pays for the school safety agents, they are under NYPD rules and regulations. Currently, right now, middle schools are supposed to have more than 1 agent because of the need of middle school, and high schools usually have 3 because of the need of high schools. When schools in our district are missing 1 or 2 agents because of short staff, we prioritize making sure that at least there's 1 agent for elementary, because there have been some elementaries that may have more than 1 agent. We prioritize the high school to have at least 2 agents for many reasons, and our middle schools. But there has been a shortage. Every time we hire about 100 school safety agents that go through training and get hired, we have about 60 of them that leave to go to corrections. So this is more, in my perspective, having to do with pay. There has to pay equality for school safety agents in order to continue to retain them. That's something that has to be worked out through NYPD, the unions, but also negotiation with the unions, but also with the elected officials in supporting the change in pay parity as it relates to safety agents. Because what's happening is, as many as we get in are leaving simultaneously at the same time. Now, we say 100, and 100 sounds great, right? Now that's 100 across all of Brooklyn, let's say. And out of the 100 we place across all of Brooklyn, if 50 of them are leaving, then we're only replacing 50 agents. And with all the absences and things like that that are going on, health leaves and everything else, we are seeing shortages across. So to answer the question, I don't think we're going to be able to get to in every school in District 15 at the elementary level. But I think with a lot of advocacy like the CEC has done and a lot of elected officials
collaboratively together in terms of lobbying for what the needs are. If this is a high priority for our schools and a high priority for parents in terms of their feeling for safety, I think that that has to be some advocacy that happens to find ways to find elected officials to fund and sponsor the ability for that, because it's not just hiring them. Then you're talking about pension, you're talking about healthcare, you're talking about fringe costs. All of that on the back end gets added to these particular safety agents, and it can get very costly. It's like our DOE budget. It's $37 billion, but on the onset, 60% of it goes to a lot of other things before they even get to schools, and so that's an issue. I think that's one of the things we have to do, is really to advocate for that with NYPD, but also the mayor in terms of allocation for funding for school safety. What I can say is that an offset to that, to kind of save costs, is where you heard where the PEP actually voted for, at the very least, making sure that our front doors are being locked, have cameras to be able to see who's actually wanting to enter, and buzzers to be able to open, which is the most basic level of security that schools nationwide have. We're one of the only school systems in the country that have safety agents at every single school. When you leave New York City, there are none. There's doors locked. Some districts who are more affluent and wealthy might be able to afford to pay for off-duty officers or retired personnel to actually roam and walk the school grounds, but a lot are not able to afford that. And so what they do is they just have these doors locked. I, for one, worked in Norfolk, Virginia, and just like in the school you saw in Nashville, we had a glass door. We could see through the camera and we would buzz people in, but who's to block people from running in when somebody buzzes? Who's to say they can't shoot through a glass door? Fortunately for us, almost every single one of our doors in the front of every single school is not made out of glass. And it's really like, it's solid wood or metal or whatever other materials they use, but it's covered so you can't really see in, which is, in my view, a good thing. So I think we have a lot more protections in New York City schools than most places do. But that's just probably my bias because I work for the DOE. But no, I think it's much more safer what we have. But two safety agents, I doubt they're going to be able to do that for elementary. They have done it in some where there is dangerous situations or evidence of danger in terms of ORS reporting or anything else. And we have had a few of those particular sites across the city. But 1,605 schools across our city can be very difficult to try to get two agents at every elementary at this point. And the question here is for Tori and Perry. Nancy's coming up.
Okay, so looking at the elementary enrollment and utilization page, a couple of things show up in like big print to me. One is PS32's 46% building utilization, of course, is because their building is still not being utilized at the capacity that it's going to be utilized since they built an addition. And so this is kind of, this doesn't show what's coming, right? And then this change in enrollment over a 5-year period, of course, is during COVID, where so many people left the city. So this also doesn't show what is most likely coming as people with small children have moved back into the city, and these numbers will go up. So I think it's just important to think about the numbers don't really reflect what's coming in terms of the number of kids that are going to be in this district, most likely. And then secondly, as Nana was saying, the big thing that we learned during the rezoning of subzone 3 was that people want an elementary school that's close to their home. They don't want to walk more than 10 minutes with their kids. That was repeated by all groups of people at all times over and over again. So I think that it's really important to possibly also consider what's on the other side. This map doesn't show District 13 at all. So I don't know what schools are over here, but it could be that it might be something to consider that these children are also coming from District 13 for these schools. So I guess that's not a question, it's a comment.
Important one though for us, at least when planning and thinking about it. Because we did talk about the possibility of it being impacted by other schools in districts that are next door to us, ensuring that we don't impact the already rezoned of 38 to 61, so it doesn't impact those schools that would be literally sitting right there on that zoning. There have been talks about multiple things, possibility of maybe a citywide program so that there's access to a school, because that's an area where a lot of families work in the community. So there have been quite a few things that we've been thinking about, and hearing that feedback just helps us come with a more informed decision. And I look forward to having further conversations about what can we do with this particular site. So that's good. Yeah. What we were thinking.
May I say something? Just in thinking about St. Francis Xavier and the elementary school that's already coming online in downtown Brooklyn, and declining enrollment in the lower grades just citywide, and coupled with some co-locations that we have in the district that we might want to discuss disassembling, so to speak. Should we consider using St. Francis Xavier as an outlet for moving one of the co-located schools? So I just wanted to put that out there as food for thought.
Certainly that's, you want to pull it up? Sorry. Certainly that's a possibility. That's actually something that we've actually been thinking about as well. We just want to continue to get more input now so that in April we can have further discussions based on some of the feedback you're giving here, so that we can have more of some ideas and engage the community in conversations about those possibilities. So yeah, absolutely. That's another thing we've been thinking about as well. To Nona's point about 321 and, for example, 118, we know that 118 is closer, it's actually zoned to that President Street location as well. And so is there a possibility of moving that site? There's a lot of possibilities here. We just want to hear from the community, because Camille also brings another point with some schools that might have co-location. So I think that you've already given us about at least 4 different things to kind of think about right now. One is the co-location of a school that's already impacting another site. One is bringing something that was moved further away from the actual zone, closer to the zone. Another was thinking about possible citywide program and sharing with other districts like 13 who are neighboring. So I think there's a lot for us to bring back to the table here. You think, Tori and Perry? So I think, yeah. Anything else, Antonia?
Yeah,
Yeah.
take a crack
What else
at
you
it.
got?
I'm less concerned with St. Francis Xavier than with 118 not being very well utilized. And it seems to me there's this triangle here of misallocation between 124, 39, and 118. They all seem to be quite walkable to me. I understand 107 is way up here, 329 is way over here, but 118, 124, and 39 could all be a shared zone of some sort. Or I don't know. I know you have 3 different principles there, and it's complicated. But
any decisions that are going to be made for moving a school or collating the school or anything else is always going to be difficult for that particular school community. But I think what's most important is how do we impact students' ability to be more successful when we're thinking about the decisions we're making and how we're impacting others. So for example, there's pros and cons to the co-location and moving a school, right? From my perspective, it gives a school site the ability to have his own site. And that means 2 other schools could expand, or another school could expand within that community, allowing for more growth in that community. That's the pros. The cons, you're going to have to move that community from one place to another, and that's a process. And sometimes that process, any change can be difficult for anyone. with Nona's thoughts about maybe moving 118 closer back to President. The parents are going to be within their zone proximity, so they won't be as frustrated anymore having to walk to 7th Street. Now they're closer to where they actually live. So that's a positive. Where's the negative in that? Having to move to a new location and having to reconfigure themselves from one school building to a different site that may not have the same spaces that they had before, which can make anybody frustrated and students. When speaking about Nancy's in terms of the city, the downtown Brooklyn one, thinking about what happens when you're mixing 2 districts into 1 district, because technically it would be 15, but then you're adding 13 students, and would they have access to multiple middle schools, and how does that impact our middle school process? There's a lot to take into consideration, but to your point, Antonia, I think that regardless of what we do, it's going to impact a school community in any way, shape, or form, and that's always going to be a difficult conversation. The point is, what do we do to maximize the supports that we're giving to the students, but also to the parents and the school community? So I think that what you're bringing up can be taken into consideration and thought about as well.
Can I add one more thing? I know 154 had their zone shrunk at one point, and she could use some more students. And I see 10 and 107 have some students to spare.
Yeah.
So I don't know how to facilitate that, but maybe there's a line.
That conversation, we can probably revisit this. This won't be impacted by the 2 sites that we're talking about now, but that's certainly something that CEC can bring to us so that we can rethink that. But that's more of the rezoning, if I'm correct, right, Tori? So we can look at what you're bringing up now in terms of 154, in terms of the triangle with 118, 39, and 124. We can think about those. I think that from the CEC perspective, you bringing that to the table, that's something you want to continue to discuss. We can bring Office of District Planning to the table to really rethink about the utilization or overutilization of schools in the 2 triangles that you created on the. I think that's something we can revisit.
And can I add one?
Sorry, Antonia. I think it would be worthwhile to explore this idea of trying to split up some of the co-locations, even in as much as we saw this happening at PS 32 and 442 many years ago. Both schools were trying to expand. They didn't have enough space. We always have this problem with sharing gyms, lunchroom, cafeteria. So just general problems with co-locations. And with the class size bill about to happen, I think breaking up co-locations so that all schools can grow appropriately is smart. So if that's something you all would seriously consider, perhaps we could talk more in detail about it at the next meeting.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I wasn't done, but
good.
if the parliamentarian will permit.
We need to move on after that.
Okay. In the vein of co-locations, I know at one point there was conversation. This is back to the safety conversation.
Okay.
Because we're dealing with a lot of things. With co-locations, there can be multiple entrances and exits. And I know there was a conversation about reining that in and only having one entrance and exit out of a school. And we have some co-locations where there's multiple entrances, and some of those entrances, exits aren't manned by a school safety agent because the charter doesn't have a school safety agent. Are we getting serious about making one entrance and exit, or is that sort of just something they were talking about?
So that's decided by building council. The building council meets together to make decisions as the school leaders of the particular building as to how they egress from a particular site. I think that what the trouble with that is, I'm going to give 2 examples of that. So let's think about the site that we have, our pre-K site, as well as, which is 280, that has about 470 students that are 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds in the same building as middle school students that are big. They're anywhere between 11 and 14 years old. Exiting in the same location can be very challenging to do and really very unsafe. As a matter of fact, I was just there yesterday talking about how I want to change the exits because I think that developmentally is inappropriate for 3 and 4-year-olds to be exiting at the same location as middle school students. I saw it and I just felt like a kid was just going to fly like a football through the stairs. I mean, they manage it very well, but I'm still uncomfortable because I think of my 4-year-old who runs around all over the place, and I was talking about him earlier. He'd be the one to look the other way because he's staring at the big kids and then just walk down the stairs and not walk, but fall down the stairs, right? So I think that's a challenge, and I think building councils are working on that. But I think it goes to a bigger point, which is what Camille is talking about. CEC president is really talking about if we start reducing the number of schools that are co-located, then we can probably start reducing some of the other issues, such as safety because of multiple exits and so on and so forth, right? So from my perspective, I'm thinking about 293 that has an elementary school in it, and essentially 1 6 to 12 and 1 9 to 12.
295.
Yeah, 295, right? So from my perspective, being able to have the elementary exit separately from those high school students, but the high school students exiting in the same location would be fine because they're the same height, same age, which makes it a little easier for dismissal because they don't get dismissed by teachers, they just get dismissed. Versus children who have to be dismissed by adults and other adults coming to pick them up. It also becomes a safety hazard. For example, the 280 site, where there's so many kids coming out on the side of the parkway, where there's a lot of cars. Want to talk about a speed bump? We need about 25 speed bumps on that street. But that's a whole different story. It's dangerous. So to your point, I think you're right. But that would then require schools to stagger their schedules, right? And so one school starts at 8:10, the other school starts at 8:20, the other school starts at 8:30. The problem with that is that schools have the right to choose with SBO and their staff as to what the start time of the school day is. So if everybody wants to start at 8:10, everybody's going to start at 8:10. If everybody wants to start at 8:20, everybody's going to start at 8:20. And you can't force any one school to change their start time, right? I can push and have a little nudge for some school leaders, but is that the way we want to ensure that schools are able to function in the way that they've been functioning? Because again, some schools share the same bell. So when the bell rings, everyone's on that same schedule because some campuses have decided they're going to use the same bell schedule so that it doesn't confuse kids and the interactions in the hallways as well. So I think there's a lot of variables, which is why the building council kind of makes that decision collectively. It's all the leaders in that building having to make a unified decision. And what's been working best for most schools is to have their separate exits. What's not working well with that, I think, in some cases, to your point, is there's too many kids coming out of too many exits at the same time because all the schools have the same start time and schedule. Perhaps that's something I could bring up to the chancellor or to the advisory for the superintendents to think about if schools are co-located, to ensuring that there's something in chancellor's regulation that might force each school to have a different starting time so that we're staggering the schedule. But now we're talking about changing policies in terms of chancellor's regulations, which is a whole different process. But it can be done. Not saying it can't be done.
And you'd have to get the teachers union.
Yes.
Sign off on that
yeah.
too.
So bring that in. Thank you, Camille. You would have to get a teacher union to get involved with that because part of that is SBO voting and contractual rules about 8-period days versus 7-period days and what time the day starts and what time the day has to end. And also those Monday, Tuesday days where there's certain schedule, but you can't end after 4 o'clock. And there's a lot of contractual rules that get configured into this. But I'm going to go back to what Camille said earlier. I think that the least amount of schools at a particular site creates the least amount of chaos for arrival dismissal for multiple schools. I think the more schools you have in a building, the more chaotic it can be with having to get all leaders on the same page. When everybody's a leader, everybody wants to lead their own way. And sometimes it's hard to lead leaders because everybody wants to be right in their decision-making, right? Yeah, but definitely a good point to think about in terms of what district planning will go back and share and then advise central and then advise me, and then we'll come back with some ideas and then you tell us what you think about the ideas.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Superintendent Alvarez and Tori and Carrie. Thank you so much.
And I think we're moving to the high school presentation.
Sorry. Okay.
Okay. So where's you at? We're gonna put her
Yes.
back in that chair.
Okay, you are.
You at?
So-
Come on down.
Oh, two questions in the chat. I am going to let Yuet start her presentation and we will try to answer those questions in the chat, if that's okay. Because we are way behind schedule and we have permits. So Yuet, please join us over here.
Is Shanice the Wizard of Oz back there?
Yes, she is. Yes, she is.
Good evening, everyone. Okay, there we go. I think I'm gonna stand, if that's okay.
It'll pick you up.
Awesome. So happy Women's History Month. We bring you greetings from Brooklyn North High Schools. I'm a little tired because we had our principals conference today at Medgar Evers College, which if you haven't visited, you really should. It's a beautiful campus. Right off the Franklin stop on the 4 train. And they told us about this amazing CHAMPS program where if they accept a student who commits to graduating, they will make sure the student has financial, social, emotional, all the supports they need to be successful in college. So it's a lot to think about because our kids need, some of our kids need a lot of support. And as a first-generation college goer, hearing about programs like CHAMPS is exciting. So we love Women's History Month, and we actually began the month of March spending a lot of time at the UN because Janice was invited to be part of the Commission of on the Status of Women, which is a 2-week event at the United Nations where women come, hundreds of women come from all over the world just to be in company with each other and engage in conversation. So we were able to participate in a roundtable about supporting women entrepreneurs. And we met young women from around the world, graduate students, about to be policymakers. And then we brought my Sister's Keepers students to the UN with us to participate in a conversation about gender equality in the digital age. I could barely follow the conversation, but our kids were amazing. And then we have Women's History Month events going on in all of our schools. It is an exciting month that we love very much. Next slide, please, Shanice. And you can fast forward. We always start with our goals and our historical data. You can flip to the next slide. You are the first CEC that I am saying out loud that based on the graduation data and the work that Janice has been doing with Brooklyn North High Schools, today we officially announced that all 47 of our schools are officially in good standing with the state, which, yeah, it's kind of unheard of. I'm trying to dig into the data before because I really want to say, I'm pretty sure we're the only high school district that can say this in New York City, but I'm going to fact check myself and come back next month. But we had a fantastic celebration, especially because 4 of the schools for the past few years have been in different levels of accountability status. And all of our schools are currently in good standing. So we celebrate that as an outcome of the work that the district has done in the past 4 years. Next slide, please. And as always, we share our data. I'm gonna focus you on the far right. Yeah, in bold, we updated our attendance data. And again, for the first time this year, all 47 of our high schools have met our district goal of having 80% year-to-date attendance. We're keeping an eye on chronic absenteeism, and we're keeping an eye on special education program services. The city council will be looking at students fully served. It's funny in high schools because a student is not like in a class all day. A student could, in any given day, could have 15 different mandates because of the classes they're in, because of the types of services they get. So we look at what's called program mandates and the percentages that are matched in parallel with our students being fully served. but are super proud of our District 15 schools for that work. Next slide, please. And then two big announcements. The John Jay School for Law, we recently ran the C30 and have appointed Shamari Akil as the principal. And if the CEC would like, he would love to come next month and meet you guys in person and talk about some of the aspirations that he has for the school. Shamari comes with a long career in supporting students' social emotional well-being. He has personal interest in law. He's got big dreams and great ideas. This past week, he worked a lot with his student government to kind of re-envision what the future of the school should be. And I'm sure if you guys are willing, they would be happy to join you and his student government. It's great to spend time with them. And then I talked about the Aspen Challenge for months and months. We had our fabulous launch. I won't do it now, but when you have a chance to click on that link, we have about a 7-minute video that really shows you what the heart and spirit of Brooklyn North High Schools is about. In the videos are 160 students across 20 high schools that have now accepted 5 challenges. And I'm sorry the principal's not here anymore because so when we had the launch, there were 5 local leaders who presented community challenges to our kids. One was about the reintegration of incarcerated people into their communities. One is about the prevalence of food deserts in way too many parts of Brooklyn. One is about healthy relationships and building toolkits to recognize toxicity and how to manage yourself. One is about how using your stories, your personal stories and your collective stories, you can create a movement. And challenge number 5 was about safe streets in Brooklyn. And the students, a lot of the students accepted that challenge. So since February 16th, the teams have been working on ideas and proposals. Last Friday, one of our schools that's studying the problem of food deserts actually collected enough provisions from their community to host a free food Friday in their neighborhood and just like set up in a local park and brought the community together. So on April 27th, we are bringing the teams back. If you guys follow Janice on Twitter, our Aspen Challenge teams are flooding Twitter with the work that they're doing. And it's amazing, like it's what we all dream of for high school students, that they will embrace a challenge that means something to them personally and also allows them to be impactful in their community. So on April 27th, they are all going to present and 3 teams will get selected to go to Aspen to compete with students from 10 other cities for the national challenge. Next slide, please, Shanice. And then just women's empowerment. I spoke about the UN events. We're also ramping up our MSK events. Janice has entered into a partnership with this amazing group called Solve the Silence. And it's all about women's empowerment and using voice and how coming together as sisters, we can lift each other up. Tomorrow evening at Brooklyn Tech, our MSK ladies are getting together to meet MSK graduates who are currently in sororities and historically Black colleges who are coming back to talk about their experiences as a woman of color in college. Next slide, please, Shanice. And then I don't know if Senator Persaud sends, I don't know who she sends these to, but we love her stuff. And she has legal aid clinics coming up and to embrace our newly arrived communities, and then her fabulous annual Easter egg hunt. So those are for you. Next slide, please, Shanice. And then as always, all the different ways to stay in touch with us and highlighting the fabulous work of all of our parent coordinators in generating the monthly digest for us all. So thank you so much. Always a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
All right.
So there were some comments that we should probably just sort of read out.
For
I think in the chat, there were some comments. That's your job.
to Superintendent Alvarez.
I think you should just read out the comments. They were for ODP, but they're gone. And I mean, maybe the superintendent can address them.
Okay.
Okay, for ODP, I know there is lots of time to plan this, but what safety measures will be taken to protect the 80 Flatbush campus from Flatbush, Schermerhorn, Lafayette traffic, and what are examples of potential uses that, for example, 80 Flatbush could contribute to the D15 space needs?
Yeah, so those are good questions. So first of all, the location that you saw on the pictures that the Office of District Planning shared, that actual side was the Jabral side. So that's the high school side. And I don't know if you looked at the picture carefully, but there's a huge front area where there's multiple spaces between the street and the entrance to the school that was specifically designed so that there was almost like a blockage area. We also asked them to put some other things, which I believe they're doing some beautification with flowers and plants and trees and stuff like that. The actual entrance to the elementary school side of the building is actually on State Street. So, and it's further in on State Street because if you look at the design of the actual building that's going there, not the school, but the building, it actually hits Flatbush Avenue and part of State Street. And then when you go further in, I would say at least 100 feet in, more than 100 feet, but at least 100 feet in is where the entrance to the elementary school is. I will bring a picture of the side of the State Street entrance, but the entrance for the elementary school is actually on State Street. The 80 Flatbush side is the entrance for the high school students, and it has a huge section sidewalk that's designed for kids to be able to be within that space, even though Flatbush Avenue is right there with heavy traffic.
I guess I'll just read some of the comments. Oh, okay. Somebody commented, it really seems like we need schools to serve all the new buildings on 4th Avenue and Gowanus. The St. Francis site seems poorly located. For Superintendent Alvarez, would the change in district-wide curriculum be implemented in the school year 2023-24 or 24-25?
So right now there's been a hold on all of that. We were not in phase one. Phase one was expected to start in the 23 school year. Those were school districts who already were close to already being in a unified curricula where superintendents made decisions with their communities. District 15 was part of phase two. Phase two wasn't supposed to begin until 2025, which would give us a full year to plan accordingly what we wanted to do. At this time, there's been a hold on that. But while there has been a hold, we as a district are starting to still engage our community, particularly our principals and assistant principals first, around this particular work. We're utilizing principals advisory who have been elected by principals and AP advisory who have been elected by their colleagues to really explore and experiment and understand all the curricula that's being proposed. Please note that the curricula that's being proposed are only for K-5 ELA. There is nothing that is expected for 6 to 8 to do, and there's nothing expected for mathematics at this time. It was just ELA, but we're not even in that phase. So we have a lot more time, and I'm expecting schools to continue to use the curricula that they're using, or if they're making changes, that the changes that are being made are decisions that have been made at the school level in the interest of improving student outcomes for their schools.
All right, I don't see any more questions, and I don't see questions for you in the chat.
Yeah, any CEC members, questions for you at? Thanks.
No. You at? We appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Yes,
for
thank
being
you.
here. Please send our regards to Superintendent Ross. Thank you so much, Superintendent Alvarez.
We'll add Shomari Akil to the agenda for next month for April. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, we're not adding anybody else. It never ends. Yes, part of her presentation. Yes, that's fine. Let's say. Sounds good. Okay. All right. Okay, so we are getting closer to the end of our meeting. And where are we on the agenda? We are at the section of the agenda where we are going to discuss a resolution on physical health and wellness in schools. This is something that was born out of conversations that I've been having in the citywide wellness council, where we are reviewing the DOE policy on school wellness. This also had been shared with the President's Council, and we had a lot of feedback from them. This is currently only a draft. I think that we might be adding more to it because it's only 3 pages and it needs to be 6. Okay, so you all have a copy in print. See if we can try to share.
We need to find it
with the public, but I will just start reading it quickly for just a review. So this is resolution on physical health and wellness in schools. Whereas every 3 years, the Department of Education is mandated to review its school wellness policy, where a review committee is formed of citywide public school community members. Whereas members of the Citywide Wellness Advisory Council include CEC members, CPAC members, which stands for the Chancellor's Parent Advisory Council, and families who believe our children have the right to play and be loud and to express their feelings, stretch while in the classroom as often as they need to. Recess time should be a time to relax, to play, or to run around. Children require time to socialize. Outdoor recess time should be encouraged for fresh air. Safe, non-smoking, non-drug, and non-dangerous space should be afforded to children. To drink water as often as they need to and be encouraged to be physically active in and out of school. To play with all children without separation by grades or programs, to have and seek support when they need to without being judged or punished. Whereas students are frequently held back from lunch or recess as a punishment or to be provided services for special education such as SETS, which is special education teacher supports, or OT, PT, occupational therapy or physical therapy, or services for ESL, which is English as a second language. And whereas there is no way for DOE to ensure that schools are not withholding lunch or recess time, nor scheduling services during lunch or recess. Whereas time for lunch and recess should be extended. Students, especially our youngest, are rushing to eat and often have trouble unpacking food or opening beverages. Whereas all schools should have standalone gym and playgrounds, not multi-purpose cafeteria, gym, auditoriums. Too many schools use the same room for different activities rather than using that room for the intended purpose. Whereas everyone needs a break at some point during the day, and by acknowledging that in a collective way with whole class movement breaks and or mental mindfulness breaks, we are helping every child and simultaneously decreasing the stigma placed upon the students who have breaks written on an IEP or 504 plan. Whereas some schools employ the following programs that are effective in promoting a love of movement, keep the blood circulating and the mind working, and those include Go Noodle, Move to Improve, 7th Inning Stretch, Brain Power Wellness, the Monday Mile, Zumba, and yoga. Whereas standing desks offer children and adults access to learn or work how they feel comfortable, aid with movement, standing up, and or doing a dance. Whereas after-school programs are full with long wait lists and should be expanded. Before or after-school programs can be productive, engaging, and safe, as well as cater to children's strengths and interests. So in our school, we have CHAMPS and YMCA. People have tried to devise walking school bus where children meet each other along the path to school. Whereas we need more parent and student programs where families can come together. A day dedicated to mental wellness would allow all New York City students, families, and staff the ability to exercise and learn about mental health and unity as a city. Whereas social media and outlets like TikTok have taken over children's lives, and the health curriculum should be expanded to include more information on body image and on how social media can cause depression. That was a note. Therefore, be it resolved that in the school year 2023, the Department of Education prioritize the importance for physical exercise as it relates to student health and wellness by adequately funding programs in all schools such as Move to Improve, Go Noodles, Seventh Inning Stretch, and Brain Power Wellness, to ensure that every child has access to high quality, fun movement programs that promote lifelong understanding and positive attitudes towards physical fitness. Be it resolved that all teachers and staff be provided with professional development on the value and need for movement to be incorporated into the classroom environment. Be it resolved that superintendents and principals will incorporate the following into each child's daily schedule. Physical activity that includes some form of stretching, 3 to 5 minute mental breaks every 60 minutes or so, extended lunch period to aid in digestion, extended recess period to release energy or to socialize. Physical education classes should not be scheduled after lunch. Be it resolved that by the school year 2025-26, the DOE Office of Space Planning will create standalone fitness areas in schools that currently have combined gymatoriums. Be it further resolved that up to 40 standing desks will be allocated per school to be used by students or staff. Be it resolved that every elementary school be provided with a sensory gym, which will be available to the entire school community. Be it resolved that additional funding be allocated through the New York City budget to provide after school for every waitlisted child that requires a seat. Be it further resolved that the City of New York will shorten the application timeline required to expand CBO funding for additional after-school seats, and that this process be made more transparent. And be it further resolved that the Department of Education schedule an annual fitness and mental health summit, a day dedicated to wellness, where all students, staff, and members of school communities can participate in unity as an entire city. So that is a draft still being worked on, but I wanted to at least introduce it for comments and questions. Anyone?
Does Joe want
Mhm.
or can we just talk?
Yeah, we wouldn't do public.
So I guess my question is just, you said you want to expand it by 3 pages. So what would you add?
I was kidding. No, there's still, so in this document, can I do this or this is up there?
It's being shared right now, but I mean, you can scroll.
Shanice, would you mind do
you want to scroll?
So you're doing it?
Yeah, I'm doing that.
Okay, so,
What do you do?
I wanted to show Nancy that at the bottom here, there's still some notes that I did not get a chance to incorporate yet. So, I mean, some of this has been incorporated, but I wanted to do a little bit more fine-tooth combing. So it's there. Okay. It's not going to be 3 more pages. I just think wellness is important enough to have 3 more pages.
Can I push back on one of your whereases?
Please do.
I don't know. I don't think
you should mix the age groups too extremely. Like those little pre-K and kindergartners kind of need to play separately from the 4th and 5th graders. I mean, maybe 3rd grade is sort of like, maybe they can go either way, but I kind of feel like, you know, there's a reason why you don't have your big kids playing with your little kids.
I guess I
They're
was thinking
big.
plus or minus 1 grade.
Oh,
Not, where is that? Because I'll
was
just,
it the,
I'll just.
it was at the kind of at the
Here. Oh, yeah, right. Okay, so I'll
just
clarify that. Mhm. No, I mean, I still stand by the idea of
programs,
okay,
yes, but
so we have a lot of children that are like in families that are born 2 years apart. I think that's sort of like the average. So that in your own family, your kids are, you know, 2 years apart. Like, I think that in my mind, I was thinking they would be, you know, within 2 years. So not outside of that.
well, you have to be specific about the time frame you're talking.
Yeah.
But how would that even work? Like if you, I'm just picturing my daughter's school, PS 58, how would you get all the kids outside in the playground at one time?
Well, in schools where it could. I mean, the point was that we don't really want to be separating children necessarily by grades or programs. So say, for example, you have like, you wouldn't put like all of the kids in dual language out together necessarily. Like you don't want to just sort of segregate programs either. So it's more about letting children meet each other.
It might be beneficial to keep the word programs.
Yeah,
but
and
not
get rid of the
word
age thing. I
grades.
think it's too hard to articulate.
I think that, and in fact, you know, education for many years was, but you had lots of different ages together in the same space for a very long time. So it's not that it's not possible, just now that we've got these humongous groups of 25 children who are in a classroom of other 9-year-olds or 10-year-olds or whatever, and to then put them, you know, mix up these ages, we just don't have an infrastructure anymore in order to be able to do that in the same way that it could be or even should be done.
And I do think that like comparing like ELA, for instance, or language to developmentally appropriate play are 2 different domains of child development that aren't really related. And that I like the aspect that we would be focusing on teacher training toward more child development, which I don't think ever comes into what we do for teachers. And it's desperately wanted and needed. And we usually end up paying NYU gobs of money for stuff they don't want to hear or know. And if we were talking about stages of development and, you know, how Erickson views play or how Vygotsky views play, I think that would be really interesting to teachers. And we know that pre-K kids versus 3rd graders play very differently, parallel versus cooperative versus.
Okay.
So I think this really does have a useful.
Thank you.
Need.
Okay, great.
So what about if a child just starts stretching in the middle of class and wants to just get up? I mean, what about if that child starts to become disruptive, they're stretching the whole class?
I mean, I personally, I think that if a child needs to stand up and stretch, that should not be an inexcusable act. So I see what you're saying in terms of like, where is the line that gets crossed between, you know, it just becomes like a distraction and a disruption. But I mean, to me, like I'm a person who has a hard time sitting in my chair. Like you see me, I'm all over the place, and you know, work is getting done. And I think there are ways to allow children at any age, adults, to just have this ability to get what they need without, you know.
But we're not
just-
talking about, we're
Yeah.
talking about children and the teachers. We trust our teachers to have discretion to say, you can go to the bathroom. Yes, you can get it. You can't take
Right.
5 drinks of water. You can't go to the
Yeah.
bathroom 3
Yeah.
times in one
Yeah.
class. And I think we're taking away some of the discretion of teachers by saying, I mean, there's stretching in time. At one point, it says you can get up and dance if you want to.
Well, that was like with the idea of the standing desk. I mean, if you're going to be at a standing desk, like you might need to move around a little bit. You're not going to just stand at
But isn't that
attention.
I mean, wouldn't that be a distraction to the other kids?
I don't think it would, actually. I think that it's like a mindset about what's acceptable and what's not. And so, I mean, are we teaching our children to just have to sit there rigidly with their hands folded? You know, I mean, to me, it just doesn't make sense, but.
You got to sit there with your hands full.
Mhm.
I think it's an extreme to say. I think there's discretion in the classroom for a teacher, and I think we're taking that away. A teacher is a professional, trained, and knows how to. You have to have control of your classroom. You just do. Otherwise, it's going to degenerate into a non-learning environment for the 25, 28 students in the class.
I think what you're saying, if I could tag on to that, is that like this ties into child development as well, and it's going to be different for different ages. But generally, when children are overactive or have trouble pulling it together, it's kids seeking boundaries. And when we remove those boundaries, that doesn't improve a kid's feeling of safety and comfort. It usually introduces an even more unstable or distressing environment. Like kids seeking boundaries, we don't answer that by
Expanding
widening
the boundary.
We make them clearer, we make them more logical, you know.
Okay.
And I mean, movement is important, like, but I think it's more complicated developmentally than just the freedom to move.
Okay.
It needs to be purposeful with boundaries.
I remember reading an article about a school district in Texas where they broke up thank you. This school district in Texas used to do 1 30-minute recess in the middle of the day, and they moved it to 4 15-minute recesses throughout the day. And that transformed the whole experience for the elementary school kids. So I think what I'm hearing from, especially what you're saying, Alfred, is that the idea of movement is a good one, but it needs to be done in a structured way so that it's not disturbing what's happening in the classroom, because the teacher needs to be able to maintain the space in the classroom. So maybe it's about having more structure to when the movement is happening, or how it's happening, or even if it's in the classroom, like everybody takes a 5-minute break at some point during class, or a 2-minute or a 1-minute break, whatever, like we all take a deep breath type of thing. So we all get up and stretch for a minute, right? Maybe the thing is that there just needs to be some type of structuring in order for it to not be disturbing.
So what you are talking about is the whereas on the first page, the very last one. And I am totally okay with scratching the line. Alfred, where is that line that you were talking about? Oh, where the standing desks are? Yeah, okay, so.
Well, just the existence of standing desks. I mean, they use those at Mary McDowell.
Yeah.
I understand the teachers having that. But
Yeah, no, the
some
kids.
kids
No, the
stand, I mean,
kids.
are they all going to be in the I mean, who gets priority on those? Like
Yeah, right.
40, that's.
Well, see, the thing is,
I
not
understand.
every child is going to want a standing desk.
They
But
use it
some kids
selectively.
like really could benefit from a standing desk.
No, I know, but one day they want to stand, one day they want to sit, and the next one wants to stand, and what happens when you're out of desks?
Then you ask for more. I don't know what to say. I think that standing desks are important. I know a lot of like teachers have said that standing desks are important, and yeah, we don't want to have like a whole entire classroom of standing desks, or maybe we do. I don't know, but like people are interested in that, and so
I totally agree with the expansion of the
Yeah.
after-school programs. I think that is wonderful. I totally agree with some sort of curriculum on the dangers of social media. I think that students, especially middle school students, and parents can benefit from that. The movement within a classroom and the stand, I think we're usurping the teacher's discretion, and I don't agree with that.
so could I say something like,
But she's saying the teacher would have complete discretion over who got the standing desk and for how long and under which not every child uses the standing desk. The standing desks are used like.
so you'd have like one or two in
You
a
know what the
classroom.
bumpy seats are?
Yeah.
Have you seen the bumpy seats? They give those bumpy seats to kids and they put them in the chair because there's like some kids who just like need to wiggle. And they don't like, not every kid needs the bumpy seat.
Yeah.
It's just like,
Or wants
it's
it.
it's a support device.
Yeah, it's like a tool.
It's a tool. So it's not like every
Is that bad?
single person would use it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. All right.
This is our last. We're done in less than 5 minutes. No, this is good. We're almost done. We're almost done. Thank you. Yes.
I said, no for the resolution, but just as an idea, maybe, in terms of playing and games and things. When I came to America, I saw this playground where they have a ball tied to a rope, or I can't remember the name of it.
Okay.
Tetherball.
Yeah.
Super dangerous.
Love it.
That people in different countries
Yeah.
do other things.
Right.
You know, like for example,
Yeah.
when we were kids, we played something very similar to baseball, but with your hand.
Yes.
So you just hit the ball.
Yeah.
You know, maybe.
Yeah.
You know, like parents could suggest something that they could do, because we got people from so many countries. These are the things.
So they have that at PS 32. Like I've seen that in the gym.
They can do something that not everybody knows. Yeah.
Okay, I'll add something about that.
It's not a complicated resolution already.
I'll make the font smaller.
Oh, great.
Okay, so thank you all for your feedback, and more on this at a later date. Does anybody have any old business or new business? We put it on the agenda, but I don't have anything. And so if not, I would just say I'd like to adjourn this meeting at 9:05.
So the next business meeting Zoom, and then we go in person for the calendar.
Yes, our next business meeting is April 18th. We are going to hold that via Zoom because the open meetings law was extended. But we will be back in person April 25th at PS 2:30, where we will be hearing from the Office of District Planning. So please save those dates, and looking forward to seeing everybody soon. Have a lovely evening, everybody, and thank you so much for being here tonight.
I would take that to dance. Something about the wording.
Interpretations dismissed.
Thank